Welcome, skateboard company founders, managers of skateboard companies, bosses of skateboard companies. Today I'm going to talk about skateboard trucks and everything you need to know in order to start your own truck brand if you haven't yet done so, or how you can improve your truck brand if you already have one. So trucks are made of a base plate, a hanger, like I have to go through the basics before I start getting into the complicated parts, an axle washers, nuts. Usually you have the nut here on top, but this is an inverted kingpin truck, so you have the nut on the bottom. And you've got the bushing washers and the bushing. Okay, so now we can go into the more complicated part. So when you make a truck, you pour aluminum into a mold. And when pouring into the mold, then the truck takes the shape that you have created. Usually it's done in some 3D artwork programs, but we can help you with that. So if you do a 2D drawing, or if you take an existing truck and tell us what you want to change, then we can do that for you. And usually when skateboard companies start their own truck brands, they say which one is the most popular truck out there. And currently the most selling truck is, I suppose, the indie truck. And so a lot of skateboard companies go with a truck that strongly resembles an indie truck. And usually these open molds come with a thick base plate and generally like a pretty heavy truck. So of course, if it's very thick and heavy, it doesn't break. But if you want to start your own truck brand, don't just copy the most popular brand on the market and don't just make it thick and heavy so it doesn't break. Think a little further than that. Like, think of how you can create your own shape that is better than, or at least at the same level as the best truck brands out there, but different. So here's an example. Here's a mold we created. So you've got a double layer base plate, which is nice and thin too. Then you've got a super slim hanger, and also the shape is different to the other truck brands out there. So here you've got the super hollow base plate and also this really slim hanger. And when you create a truck, think how it's going to be used. So which parts of the truck will be used more, which less. So if your base plate stands out further, so when you do a nose slide or tail slide, it touches the curb, then you need to protect it. If the angle makes the hanger come forwards and the base plate go backwards, in that case, only the wheels will touch when doing slides. And this way you don't need to add extra material to the base plate. It's, of course, it's a thing of taste. Some people like to slide with the truck touching because it slides better than the PU of the wheel, but it's just a matter of taste. So when you make your own truck production, there are different finishes. The standard, of course, is the raw truck. This truck has received 3 levels of polishing. So when the truck comes out of the mold, we grind down the hard edges and roughly polish this by hand before we put it into a bath of small metal pearls. And after taking it out from the metal pearls, we put it into a softer, sometimes rubber ball kind of washing machine, which gives it this nice glossy and clean finish. And that's how we created first this look. And then on top of that look, you can add your own styles. For example, here, as I talked about this truck before, this one has a glossy dye, which is the standard we're making skateboard trucks, here in combination with a matte black base plate. I like the combination of matte and glossy together. Same here. You've got the matte black bushings and the glossy washers. Here again, I like the contrast. But if you want to go a little crazier than that, you can use electroplating, like here, for example. So electroplating is super shiny, and here in combination with a laser etched logo. But the electroplating is more expensive too, so you can check that out on 2x.com on the truck configurator. You can choose the different materials, choose the different finishes, shapes, and just play around and see the cost. It also shows you the price if you make your own mold. Here, let's go to the surf skate truck, because this one is pretty exciting because it has 2 different electroplating finishes. So the top one is more flaky and the bottom one more polished. That's also a difference that you can choose from when you make electroplating. I especially like the more glossy one more. but some people like this kind of flaky finish. So it's really a matter of taste. And here's an example of putting together this flaky electroplating with the black matte base plate. I think this combination is also really cool because it has the contrast from super glossy to matte. And here an example of like the standard die with a raw hanger. Also, it's nice, it's a standard. And here together with a more glossy bushing and just this color combination, I think it's pretty neat. Apart from this, what you need to know when you run your own truck production is what makes a truck good, what makes it bad. And if you take, for example, a not so strong axle and you make the hanger really thin, it breaks easily. So think of the different components. I'll show you again this truck here. So here you've got the hollow titanium axle. This hollow titanium axle is so strong, which allowed us to make the hanger a lot slimmer. And then we also used the hollow titanium kingpin, inverted in this case, because same here, it's lighter, it's stronger, and allows us to make the truck use less aluminum because the components are so strong. And here we made it super hollow, because when you run a truck production, it's not just aluminum. You have to mix the aluminum with different chemicals in order to make the truck neither that it breaks nor that it bends. And at the same time it has to be light. And that's usually a play of getting the right chemicals into the aluminum, which we have perfected pretty far to get the truck to be so slim and still very stable. Then if you pour a truck, let's take this truck for example. So you've got the base plate and you've got the hanger. So when you have a mold, so a mold usually is around this size. You have two molds coming together and pressing the truck before first the aluminum is put in and then pushed together to create that shape. There are three ways to mold a truck. So the first one is injection molding, then there's gravity casting, and then there's forging. So injection molding means that you have a nozzle which shoots in the aluminum. It's by far the fastest production. You can automate it really well. The problem with injection molding is that when you shoot in the aluminum, a lot of air comes into the material, which later stays inside the truck. And if you have these tiny air bubbles, it just makes the truck break a lot easier during riding. Then you've got gravity casting. Gravity casting means you slowly pour the aluminum, mostly by hand. And this process is amazing for taking out air bubbles, but it's not good for making precise shapes. So, for example, this really rough truck that I've shown before, this could be made by gravity casting. Because here you don't have any special complicated shape, and you can pretty much just pour the aluminum really slowly and it will go in all the corners. However, I've shown you this kind of thin, really beautiful shape here with all the different kind of special shapes and the embossed logo. This would not be possible with gravity casting because gravity casting does not reach all the different corners in the mold, so it's only good for really rough shapes. If you want the material to be super strong and reach all the corners to have a really precise shape, then you need to forge the trucks. Forging means you pour the aluminum into the mold and then you push it in with a really big hammer at a really high force to press out all the air bubbles and to go into all the tinier corners. So these trucks are forged, which is why we also embossed the forged logo in here. But it's up to you, you can choose. If you want to have trucks that are super cheap, if you want to make completes that sell in sports shops or I don't know what, then you can injection mold. However, if you want people to be able to ollie down some stairs, you can't injection mold. You have to either use gravity casting or forging. Now, if you want the truck to really absolutely almost never break, then gravity casting is for you the way, but it's gonna be heavy. If you want to have the sweet spot between the high weight, the low weight, if you want to have a sweet spot with a low weight and really strong material, then you need to forge. And this gives you the beautiful shape too. So I highly suggest forging if you make pro trucks, which is also why many of the pro trucks out there use the forging process. Now, if you go to 2x.com, you can see the different prices. So the more trucks you order for every batch, the lower the price. Also, the less variety you have, the lower the price. But it's not about that only. Like sometimes if you start your own truck brand, you want to have a variety of trucks and you have to start small, which is fine. You have a range from the prices, and just don't start too small, otherwise it's hard to enter the market. Don't start too big, otherwise the risk is high. Just also there, find your sweet spot and make maybe 3 different styles or 2 different styles to get started. But again, look how much it costs to make your own mold, because if you just go with a standard mold and add your logo on top, it's not really gonna be too inviting for shops or distributors to buy your brand, except if you can probably add some really nice print and colors, it could work. But if you really want to stand out with an amazing new truck brand, then make your own mold. We'll help you with that. You can select it on the website, it shows you the molding cost. Create some different color styles, some different prints. And also, really important, like trucks are just an amazing product to get your company started or to expand into a new product or component segment, because like everybody makes decks, right? So I don't know, how many deck brands are in your city? Like many cities have like 2 or 3 young deck brands, so it's a highly competitive market. But truck brands, when was the last time you saw a truck brand being created in your city or in your region? Probably never, right? That's because trucks are really difficult to make. That's why there are only very few manufacturers, very few companies offering good trucks. And then the companies that want to start their own brands, it's just like such a big step. So decks are easy, you can make 50 decks for, I don't know, $1,000. But with trucks, you got to start with like $5,000 to get into the market. So it's a bigger step, but it's much more profitable. Like if the product with the biggest margin are skateboard bearings. So skateboard bearings can be sold at 3x, 4x. A skateboard truck can be sold at 2x to 3x. So you make it, let's say, roughly $5 or $6. Let's say $5 for an example. So you make your truck at $5, you can sell it at $10 or $15. If you make a deck, you make it at $15 or let's say $20, you would have to sell it. You can like at most sell it at 2x, but usually you can't do that. You can only add like 30-40% on top. With a skateboard truck, you can really double it. So that means if you buy, let's say 1,000 or 2,000 trucks to get started, then you can double that with the money you made on the first production and go for 4,000. So your company grows much faster than you would with any other component except for bearings. I hope this video helped you and that I'm gonna see you prepare your order on the website, and let me know if you have any questions about trucks to get your brand started. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing your truck brand on the market and take a huge part of the market share. Enjoy the 2hex.com web configurator of the trucks, so you can play around, see what it costs, see the different options, and then reach out to us if you're ready to start the production, or just submit the order and we'll call you. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.